Well, hello and welcome to the Profit Express. I'm Tim Healy, and I'm inviting you to join me each and every Wednesday so you could be prepared to win the battle for business. That's right. So thanks for being on board today. And of course, a big thanks to our friends and sponsors, Corbett Public Relations, where they've been promoting and protecting businesses and brands for over 30 years. So do yourself a favor. Visit Bill and his team at CorbettPR.com. That's CorbettPR.com. Welcome aboard, everybody, and it is time to win the battle for business. Now, I am about to read a quote from today's guest in the book he has written. Today's guest is Anthony Butler. His book is Primal Storytelling, Marketing for Humans. Let me get a good shot in there. Oops. Okay, there we go. And I want to read this quote. I'm going to start off reading a quote, which I normally don't do, but this to me perfectly sets the tone for the show today. And Anthony says in his book, if you were to watch YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the next 82 years, you would just barely finish watching all the new video content uploaded in the last hour. Let that sink in. And he shares this quote early in the book. I read it. And I read it twice. It is an astonishing number. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 82 years, and you will have just watched the video content uploaded to YouTube in the past hour. Now, man, oh man, think about that. And that's just video content. And another fact he shares in the book, there's 1.5 billion websites globally. So I know I represent a lot of the listeners. I'm a small business owner like you with Healy Success Solutions. I host the Profit Express, the podcast, and it's up to me to brand my business. It's up to me to brand the show. And sometimes when I hear statistics like this, and we haven't even talked about other social sites like Instagram and TikTok, blah, 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 it's like I almost don't want to get out of bed sometimes. It's almost depressing, but it can't be. It can't be. So you're listening. You face the same challenges I and every other small business owner out there does. You have a brand that you love, that you're passionate about, that you're committed to, that you want to get out there. And it's not going to be about being depressing today or feel like you're spitting into the ocean and making no difference. No. Today I want to share my guest's message. Again, my guest, Anthony Butler, his book, Primal Storytelling, Marketing for Humans. And he talks about how stories are probably one of the best ways to capture human attention. So I know selfishly I'm looking forward to today's interview with Anthony. I'm reading the book. Again, it's a great read. I absolutely recommend it, Primal Storytelling. So it's a pleasure to have on the Profit Express, Anthony Butler. How are you today?
Well, hey, thank you. I appreciate you having me on. I'm doing well.
No, listen, my pleasure. I don't want to start like it's depressing. But as the business owner, when you're up against so much in these tidal waves of content, whether it's video, whether it's, social media, it can be a little daunting, So when books like yours come across my desk, it's like, okay, I'm personally interested. I know it would make a great topic for the show. So here's let's start with this. I have had on other authors who've written about storytelling over the years, okay? Storytelling is one of the, our original forms of communication, as I'm sure you'll talk about. But you talk about, Anthony, primal storytelling. What is the impact of the word primal on storytelling?
Yeah, so, starting with that intro is that we're trying to cut through all this noise. And one of the things that everyone is struggling with is that you're not just competing with the business next door anymore. And when you get online, you're competing with the whole world and the attention of each individual. And what the primal part of storytelling came around and where it comes from is this idea behind evolutionary psychology. And if you think of like animals, Animals have genetically coded behaviors. They have instincts. So geese fly south for the winter. They don't go east. They don't go west. They don't go on vacation in Hawaii. They do those things that they have to do. Squirrels
Right.
gather nuts. With people, we don't have, hard coded instincts in the way that we used to because we have free will, but we still have those primal urges. And some of those urges are revolve around storytelling, and a lot of those urges revolve around who is in our tribe, our family, our friends, our small community of people that we are actually connected with. And so the primal part of it is really it's about connecting with a small group of people that you have something in common with.
Mm.
It's a very important concept. And it's not just telling stories. We're not trying to write the great American novel. I'm a small business, you're a small business. I think most of the audience is here. And what do small businesses want? They want to grow. They want to make sales. They want
Bottom line.
leads.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and when when you think of a small business and a small business marketing, we think of, okay, what are the business systems that we have? And what primal storytelling is, it's a system for a small business to implement a content marketing program that's going to connect with a niche audience that, there's some story structures, there's some primal urges and emotions
Mm.
that they can use. And so we can get more leads and we can grow, and one of the issues that you have is there is so much content is that you have to create content that's for a very small audience. Like think of your podcast and who it's for. And then think of all the people it's not for. So I'll give you an example. I'm a 50-year-old guy. For 20 years, I've been studying Brazilian jiu-jitsu and fighting. Okay.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it's my passion. It's my hobby. I own a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school. I teach jiu-jitsu. I probably teach 10 classes of jiu-jitsu a week. Right.
Wow.
Well, I consume everything about fighting in the UFC and jiu-jitsu. So I watch all the fights. I watch all the matches. I subscribe to all these things so I can see them in real time. If you send me a message that's about jiu-jitsu, I'm probably going to read it. I'm probably going to answer. I'm going to respond. I am a hot buyer of everything jujitsu.
Right.
Now, my 70-year-old mom, who's a little old lady, she doesn't care about jujitsu at all. Like she knows
Right.
I'm in jujitsu. I try to tell her about it. She's like, "You're wrestling?" you know. Um, she cares about gardening. She cares about all of her grandkids. She cares about, she's with my wife and they're planting her yard and 10,000 different kinds of flowers and that kind of stuff. Very different interests. We're not the same group. Like
Right.
like she and I are not in the same, we don't have any of the same interests. Okay. And I think that is the number one problem that a lot of businesses fall into is they create content. Who is the content really for? What are they trying to accomplish? And
Mhm.
I think most of them they fall into kind of this 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 rut, and it's why the subtitle of the book is marketing for humans, is where they're like, okay, we got to be part of the online conversation. So I know Google the bot is going to come to our website and we're going to do SEO. And so then they publish all these blogs that no one would ever in their right mind want to read. There's
Wait,
no
okay.
insight.
Okay, wait. I'm gonna, I'm
It's
gonna, I'm gonna interject. Hold on, because this. So that was actually one of my other questions. Because again, the subtitle of the book, "Primal Storytelling: Marketing for Humans," it almost seems like an oxymoron. Of course, you're going to market to humans, and one you just mentioned, all this content that's created that's boring. Are marketers today creating content more with analytics and algorithms in mind than human beings?
so you just hit on one of the biggest scams of our time. And that's like, think back just a few years ago, and there were thousands and thousands of these SEO companies around the country. And they all had the same model. Oh, we'll fix the technical SEO on your website and we'll get you backlinks. And they're going to third world countries and they're hiring these backlink farms and they're sending all these junk backlinks to your website. And
Hmm.
people did that. Lots of big companies do that. To this
Sure.
day, there are still companies that Google is penalizing them for having toxic backlinks. Okay. What's happened is a lot of companies fell into the trap of trying to create content for the search engines, trying to game the search engines, trying to get more search engine optimization, SEO. Well, you don't build an audience like that because
Right.
no real
Right.
person wants to read that content. Go on some of these big corporate blogs and just read some of the articles. And you're like, who is this for? And I
Right.
predict now that ChatGPT is out and you can crank out an SEO heavy article in 5 seconds. If you read some of the stuff that chat is coming up with, it's awful. Real people who are creating insight, content that is valuable, that is
Right.
consumable, that makes you laugh, it makes you cry, it brings you into a
Yeah. Yeah.
story.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's going to move the needle. And
Okay.
my
So,
my whole my whole thing is quality over quantity.
man, this conversation could go in a million directions already, and we just started. So there's obviously the Chat GPT conversation, right? Now, all right, here's
Oh
a
yeah.
personal side story. My wife and I were shopping at Whole Foods like a month ago, and the cashier, this young woman, she's 20s, early 20s, very sweet, and I don't know how it came up exactly. And Chat GPT came up. And she's like, yeah. And like her face got depressed. And she's like, I'm a journalism major. I'm nervous. I don't know what to do. So here you have a human being who wants to go into the field of study of journalism and the art of journalism. And she's already thinking maybe it's something I don't want to get involved in. So is technology just completely turning humans off from even, being creative and relying on ChatGPT? Anthony, you got
So
my head
I'd
spinning
love
already
to.
here.
Yeah, and this is kind of a sidebar of the main
Yeah.
conversation, but I want to talk about this exact thing. In 2022, my company, we helped produce hundreds and hundreds of articles and blogs
Right.
and thousands of social media posts and white papers and things. What I can tell you is think of ChatGPT like the evolution of tools for cutting down trees. Okay.
Mm.
So back in the day, we had a wedge axe and
Hmm.
we would sharpen it, and you're chopping all day to chop down one tree, right? And then eventually they came up with a double saw. And then after that, modern times we come up with chainsaws and then we come up with machines and robots. Think of ChatGPT as an assistant to writing because it right now it's not at the point where it can create really insightful kinds of blogs, insightful articles and social media posts.
Mm.
Um, when you think about quality and making connections, it just doesn't do that. What it does is it's very good of creating logical structures in a sentence, but it can't self edit. So I, so my son is in my business with me
Right.
and really smart, super genius, right? And he's like, "We're going to use chat, and I'm gonna cut the cost of our blogs in half. We're gonna be able to reduce our entire author program." I was like, "Okay, we'll see.
Right.
Create some articles. Let's see what you get."
Right.
Well, what he got was articles that sounded really good, but were wildly inaccurate. All the facts were wrong. So some of the ideas didn't make sense because it's pulling information from different things and it's structurally putting them. All the words are in English, but they just don't make sense. But what I will say is you can write something and upload a paragraph, upload a page,
Hmm.
and ask it to rewrite it for you in a different voice. And you can get some really nice touches. You can get some polish by doing that. You
Really?
can ask it to summarize something for you. Its ability to summarize is, it's amazing. There's definitely applications for it, but I think of it as another writer's tool. So back in the day, Microsoft came up with Word for Windows, right? And
Yep.
before that, we had kind of these tablets that would help you type things. But Word has, they have corrections in it. It has spell check. It's got some
Yeah.
grammar
Yeah.
check in it. It's not perfect. It's pretty good. It's an assistant to help you write faster and to help you organize your thoughts. I have another tool I use. I use Scrivener. It's a different software. It's for writing books and articles and plays and things like that. And all of these tools, they don't write for you. they assist you in writing. They assist you in creating something meaningful. And I think that's where chat is headed for a while. It's another big evolution before it's going to replace journalism. That's not happening
Well,
anytime soon.
it's not there
So
now, but we know the evolution of technology, and from what I've heard, and I don't want to go too far down ChatGPT, but I just think that it could very well get to the point where it's you can't distinguish between who, was it a human who wrote it, or was it ChatGPT? And I think
and
we'll
I think you're
eventually
right.
get there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I fear. But in the book, you said something that was very interesting, caught my attention. And you said that despite the advances in technology, the nature of human beings and our emotional makeup has not changed, really has not changed from our ancient ancestors to modern humans. Really?
Yeah. Think about the time span it takes for a species to adapt and change. We're talking
Mm-hmm.
about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years. Okay. I use
Right.
that example in the front of the book about my great grandfather, Charles Butler. Okay. He's born in 1898. And at his 90th birthday, he basically went from the Stone Age because he was born in a house made out of hand hewed logs with a hand dug well, born at home. And he experienced the entire Industrial Revolution, indoor plumbing, the television, radio,
God.
the computer, computers, the
Right,
space
right.
shuttle, the moon landing, all in one lifetime. Okay. And when you talk to him, and all the way up until he died, he lived on the same ranch. He wore the
Mm-hmm.
same clothes. He ate the same food that he had for almost 100 years. But
Wow.
the enormous technological changes that went on around him, okay, that changed. The people didn't change. We're the same. And if you go back, I have an enormous marketing library, and I have
Right.
ads from back during the Civil War.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
running in newspapers all around. And it's the same stuff. The problems have changed a little bit. The language has changed a little bit, but
Right.
the hyperbole, the sales process, hey, c- send us your information and we'll send you information. It's basically an old school landing page, from the 1800s. Um, it hasn't changed a bit.
So
We've just
even
changed the communication strategy.
right, so the strategy, the technology changes, but humans and our decision making process. Because again, me being in the world of sales, we always talk about decisions are made emotionally. We kind of justify them and
That's
rationalize them
right.
intellectually. So that how humans are wired emotionally has not changed, which is very interesting because I think we've gotten so caught up in digital, in social media, algorithms, et cetera. Now let's take it back a step. Again, the person listening is the owner of a law firm, a restaurant, and maybe a small manufacturing company. And I'm a believer that every human being on the planet has a story to tell. I also believe every company has a story to tell. Even if you're a law firm, I know lawyers might not always think that they have something fun to say. So let's talk about how you kind of construct. I know it's hard to do in a short period of time on a podcast, but what are some of the key elements that somebody who really hasn't tried to tell their story, their business story, where do they begin?
So the first step is always to think about who your tribe is. Who are you writing for? Who you're trying to connect with? You know, what is their demographics, and then most importantly, what are their psychographics? Like what would connect them to you? What is it they want? What are their
Mm-hmm.
hopes and dreams? And when you understand that audience, that makes all of the rest of the stories that you're going to tell and the way that you're going to connect with them a lot easier and better. And I would argue this whole controversy with Bud Light right now is just an absolute disconnect with the marketing team and Bud's leadership team on understanding who their market actually was. I say was because it looks like they're losing it, and they're really in a bad way right now. And it's clear to me that the marketing manager, she didn't understand the audience.
Right.
She didn't, and you can even see in some of the interviews that she did, she's like insulting the very people who were buying Bud Light, and I was like, that's a really strange thing to do. Let's insult the people who give us money. Let's start there. That's just not the way to grow. So step one is you got to understand your audience. You have to really, really deeply know who they are. And how do you do that? Is you gather data about them. You write down the kinds of people that they are. Where do they go to school? What kinds of problems are they having? What's the commonalities? Like I was mentioning, I'm a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fanatic. Well, that's a defining trait of my personality. Okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
how many other Brazilian jiu-jitsu fanatics are out there, and how many of them love fighting and like UFC and all the other channels out there and go to fights? And there's a lot of us. It's a sub market. It's not for everyone, right?
Sure.
And every business has this problem. And I would say, I audit a lot of companies every year, and I become a fractional CMO for companies. Is that often when I go in and I start auditing a company, they want to market to everybody because they say, well, anyone could buy what we have. And like law firms, they fall into this trap all the time. And I've had some law firm clients, is that they think because they practice law in a certain niche, that anyone who needs that niche should be their client. And it's just not the case, especially if you're in a big city like New York, where there's a law firm on every corner
Right.
and there's a huge number of cases going on. Is like, you've got to niche down. You got to find a specialty and then find a unique way of connecting with that audience that is going to be helpful to them.
I think that's a
Stop
pretty
thinking so much about yourself.
I think that's a very common trap a lot of businesses fall into. They think they're losing sales by not, trying to be, something for everybody. They think they're just walking away from business. When, as you were saying earlier, like, again, you gave yourself as an example, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, UFC, very focused, very niche. But in so much like, from traditional marketing and advertising and broadcast media, people were buying eyeballs that would never be relevant to your product or service. And I think that one of the great things, with digital, with technology, you correct me, you're the expert here, where it makes the ability to identify the tribe a lot easier. Is that accurate?
So you're exactly right, especially when you're thinking of ROI and ad spend. We've never been able to target more accurately. I would argue that no business should ever run a Super Bowl ad ever again. Like, just because the inefficiency of spend is just enormous.
Right.
It's
right,
enormous.
Right.
You're spending, $3 to $5 million for a 20, 30-second piece. And what is the return on that spend? It's why small brands and small businesses, if you're under $50 million, you're not doing branding in terms of like big brand advertising. That just doesn't work like that. Okay. Because we want efficiency from our ad dollars. And content marketing is exactly the same. As you want to think of it with an ROI. Now it's a little longer ROI. You've got different channels. Like how do you calculate the effect of your podcast on your business? Well, it's difficult to say, okay, this one episode got me all the customers. Well, it doesn't really work like that, because you publish 100 episodes and people get into the habit of listening to you and starting to build a relationship. And then one day they're like, oh, you know what? I need that. I need to give him a call. I need to reach out, and you make a connection. But that trust gets built over time. It's not during a 30-second commercial. I mean, it just isn't.
Now, all right. So if we talk about, we'll continue to use the law firm example. Choose whatever one you want. But if you talked about you have to know your tribe. You have to know who you're going after. And again, you say you're not really branding until you're a $50 million company. So there's a lot of companies listening who are very high six figures. Maybe they're themselves and one person, or maybe a couple million, 10 million, whatever. What do you, the story itself, I think that could be a challenging thing for somebody to create. Where do you begin and to create a story to tell? I don't even know if that question makes
So
sense.
it makes total sense. We're not talking about writing a Stephen King novel or a folk tale like Little Red Riding Hood. That's not the kind of stories we're talking about. What I'm talking about is creating structures. Think of it like your favorite TV show,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a theme for a whole season, and then each episode itself is encapsulated. So, like myself, okay, I market a system of how to do content marketing. That's what I'm selling.
Right.
Okay. And so if you follow me, if you read what I'm saying, is like I'm telling stories about myself, my life. Some of my most viral content, like especially on LinkedIn, are personal things that I published that my audience connects with at a
Mm-hmm.
human level.
Mm-hmm.
I have one of my best performing posts of all time was, my youngest son. He's a talented kid. He's real stubborn, and he was on a swim team and he was swimming. And I went and I think it was some vacation that he had. And anyway, so they were having early morning practices, and the practices start at like 7 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And I woke him up early, and I'm like, "Hey, you're going to practice." And he's like, "No, I'm not. I'm going to sleep in today. I'm going to skip practice." And I was like, "No, you're not. You're going to practice. You committed to the team. You're going to go to practice."
Right.
And so then he's a little kid. So he's like, gets all mad and I hate you. And, you're a bad dad and all that stuff. And so I posted on LinkedIn, which is a business site, right? It's not
Yeah.
Facebook. It's not Twitter. It's a business networking, a business social media.
Right. For sure.
And I just posted this, just a short description, maybe 250 words, just describing like this little interaction I had with my son. And I wrote in there, I was like, my son told me he hates me today. I'm okay with that. And then I just explained, I was like, as a dad, one of my duties is to make my son do what he said he would do,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and just like in business, like we do what we say we do. Like if you want to be in business for a long time, you do the things that you say you'll do. It's a core tenet of being an adult, right? That post went crazy. And I it wasn't planned at all. It wasn't like something I'd put in the plan. That post, hundreds and hundreds of comments, and
Really?
people in the comments arguing about, was it a good thing for me to make him go, or should I let him have free will, or what was I being too hard? I went to West Point, I was in the Army. Am I too much hard on my sons? That kind of stuff.
Right. Right.
And it was a surprise. But what I can tell you, even on a business networking site, everyone's still human. There's a lot of dads out there that have teenage kids that they're headbutting with. So my point is, you find little mini stories, and they don't all have to be personal, and connect them to your audience.
Right. Right.
So a law firm, there's lots of things they can do, talking about the kinds of people that they help, the problems that they solve.
Yeah.
And then you start to think bigger about your content. And it's what I call non-relevant content. Non-relevant content is when, as a brand, we produce something that's for our audience that may not have anything to do with what we do in the core of our business. Okay, so I'm a marketer. I help people make more sales. Sometimes I help sales teams like develop their sales stories. Okay, I'll post about fitness. I do a whole piece. I have a set of bonuses that come with the book. And one of those bonuses is on mindset, and it's on managing yourself and like how to be really productive, how to be really creative over a long, long period of time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like, how am I qualified to do that? Well, in another life, I'm a master fitness trainer. Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. I've done some extreme sports. I did sports in high school. I did sports in college, and now I'm a lot older, and I'm still way more fit than most people my age. And so it's not a brag. But when I talk about those things, my audience, who a lot of those guys are just like me, or maybe they're a little younger and they're trying to figure things out, it helps them, even though it has nothing to do with them buying a marketing service from me, or,
Right.
registering for my mastermind or for a certification,
Well, Anthony,
and
as you were telling that story about your son, he's in bed. I don't want to go to practice today. As you're telling that story, I immediately think of I have a son, Magnus. He's 14. He plays baseball, and you can relate to this. All dads listening can relate to this. When I get on top of him about getting a good night's sleep, exercise, stretching, whatever it is, I get eye rolls.
right.
And so, but again, you're sharing a story, and I immediately had that connection. And the
Yep.
same thing, because marketing and sales were obviously connected, and it's been proven, and you certainly are well aware of this, that people will retain a story over any data that you give them, over any
That's right.
bar graphs and stats and percentages. And
Yep.
and that's why a book like yours, Primal Storytelling, I know is so powerful. Now, let's talk about this. So, one thing that you shared in the book that I again caught my attention was you say that social pressure is powerful. You talk about referrals, and you talk about fear of missing out and how important referrals can be, et cetera. Is social pressure today? Because there was social pressure, when your grandfather was growing up at the turn of the century. But do you think that social pressure today, 2023, is more impactful because of digital and social media?
I would say it is even more powerful today than before, because we're inundated with it. And think about Instagram as an example.
Mm-hmm.
There was a study done on young girls' use of Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and it increases their depression. It increases their
Ugh.
inferiority complexes. It has all of these negative consequences
Yep.
because of these just wildly doctored photos that they seem like they're the norm. And they're just not these idealistic bodies, these idealistic images. And the seven deadly sins are ancient, right? They're not anything new.
Mm-hmm.
And envy is one of those. Envy harms us. And when you start to see all those things, and like, oh, well, I'll give you an example. My son, he's in my business, and he graduated high school when he was 16, really smart kid. And he's like, hey, I don't want to go to college. I want to start a business. And he's doing game design, and he designed his own video game, and he did some mobile games. Okay.
Wow.
And so he works on his business for about 9-10 months. And one day he comes into the office, and he's really upset, and he's depressed. I'm like, what's going on? What's wrong? And he's mad because he's not a millionaire. And I'm like, what? You just turned 18.
Right.
You've been working for like 9 months, and
Right.
let's be real. He started working when he's 17. He's half-assed, like he doesn't know what a 10-hour day it looks like, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and he's mad because he's not a millionaire. And I'm like, listen, you see all this get rich quick crap on
Oh God.
YouTube and on
Yep.
Instagram and all this stuff, and let's do drop shipping, and sell iPhone covers, and let's we can create a YouTube channel and make it $100,000 a month. Okay, yes, those outliers exist. Absolutely, it can be
Yep.
done, but most of that is nonsense. Okay,
Yeah.
and when I start to talk to him about it, and it's envy, and it's this missing out, and that like he
Yeah.
doesn't have a real perspective on real world, right? So I start taking him on business trips with me to visit clients,
Yeah.
like real business people who are struggling to make, I said to him, I was like, you know what? One of the worst
That's a great
moments
idea.
in
Yeah.
business. Oh, I told him, I was like, one of the worst moments in business is you make payroll, everyone in the business gets paid, you pay all the bills, but you don't pay yourself. All right. I don't know if you've ever had a month like that. I know a lot of entrepreneurs have. I have. And I took
Everybody's
him
been
down to
there. Yep.
yes, absolutely. I took him down to Austin, and I have a software client down there, and Austin is kind of it's a hotbed of tech companies, right? So
Sure.
there's a lot going on. I love Austin, and this is a really successful software company. They've been in business over 12 years, and they're profitable. And I'm trying to help them grow. And he comes and he sits in on some of the meetings, and he's like, "How are they in business? Like they don't have all the answers. Like you think after 12 years you would know everything?" I was like, exactly. No one knows everything. It's like it's
Right.
why I keep telling you. It's like you're so sure of yourself. You're so sure of all your answers, but you know what? Business is hard. We don't have a lot of answers. What we do is we try and we test, we throw things out, and we try again, and we do some more. And the stories are very much the same way. I lay out 4 structures that every company can tell.
Hmm.
The origin story, the transformation story, and the vision story. Those first 3, and then value stories after that. And
Right.
the reason I lay it out like that is so to answer exactly what you're just talking about is what can we do to tell our story, and like how do we do it? And
Yeah.
I'm a blue collar guy most of my life, right? So I wanted it to be like step by step by step. Here's the structure. Here's how you do it. This is the story that you're going to tell. And if you just follow that structure, you'll get a structure a story that will ring, and it will absolutely work.
All
Now,
right. So
you might have to test a few stories and do it.
let
Go
me
ahead.
ask you then. From where you sit, okay, and your agency is can do ideas. So, from your perspective, being in this business, being the author of a book, what companies do you see today that when you observe their marketing, you say to yourself, they're getting it? They know how to tell a story. Is there an example that a lot of listeners could relate to? Who impresses you?
So there's a lot of good marketing out there. You just have to kind of sift through all the nonsense. Um, I, in the book, I use USAA as an example. And they have a marketing program that I just love because one of the things they did is they thought deeply about who is their market, right?
Right.
Well, for decades, USA only insured officers, all branches, but just officers. And then they expanded to NCOs, and then they expanded to military members, and now their families. Okay.
Yep.
If you go on USAA, they have blogs, they have all kinds of content that if you even think you might go in the military someday, they're creating content that's just for you. Hey, if you're thinking about joining the military and here's what the weight standard is, here's how you can lose weight so that you can make it into basic training. Here's some tips
Wow.
to get fit so you can pass the PT test. Here's how to study for the test. You can get a higher score. You can get a better job when you go in the military. So USAA is thinking way ahead, and they're like, you know what? If you could be our client someday, we like you, and we're going to try to help you as much as we can. Even though we can't sell you anything right now, we're gonna set the stage that 5 years from now you could become our client. Like how great of thinking is that?
That's forward
And
thinking. Wow.
it is, and they've spent an enormous amount of money investing in content that is for lots of different audiences, and they've thought about every segment of it. So, I've been with USAA since, oh my gosh, the 90s, right? Maybe even the 80s. Um, I've had them, they have been my insurer that entire time. Okay. So 2023. So it's been
Yep.
over 30 years. I think there's a lot of military members that are like that with them. When when I first got out of the Army and I wanted to go and I wanted to buy a house, USAA, like, oh, we can help you with a loan and we can do this. My wife got pregnant. She was 7 months pregnant with our first son, and this guy ran through a red light and broadsided her and totaled the car with her in the car. It was just like terrifying time. I made one phone call and they took care of everything. And they didn't give me a hard time. It was like this amazing customer service on the
Yeah.
back end
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
And then they had all of these resources for me as I transitioned out of the military. And they're like, oh, you're a homeowner now. Well, you need to think about this kind of insurance. And
Yeah.
what about life insurance? What about whole life? They do all these different things. And it's just well done. It just is.
So
And
I
I
guess
think
that's
they're a
why
really
Rob
powerful company
Gronkowski is
because
trying
of
to
it.
get insurance with him.
I'm sure.
Right? Isn't he on one of the commercials, Gronkowski with USAA? I thought he was. I think
I'm
I think
not,
he
I
might
haven't
be.
seen that commercial. I'll have to look it up, but it could be.
Yeah, he is. I
Yeah.
thought so. Okay. Anthony, listen. The book again, Primal Storytelling, Marketing for Humans. And to me, in reading Anthony's book, it's a great reminder that we can't forget that we are marketing to humans. And one of the best ways to connect is with the story. And that's what Anthony's done such a great job today. I'll leave you with this, Anthony. You have the listener. You know who they are. They're your customers. They're my customers. What's your one takeaway that you want to leave with somebody to make an impact, to have them embrace, the power of storytelling? What would you share with them?
Think bigger about your content. Stop thinking about yourself and what you sell.
Mm.
Focus on the problems of the clients. Okay. Focus, focus, focus on them. And then put together a system so that you're planning your content out months in advance.
Mm-hmm.
You're really putting some brain power into it so that you're publishing something that your audience will really love and they're going to consume, and it's going to help them connect with you.
Awesome.
I have a free gift for everyone that's listening to this, and it's just go to primalstorytelling.com/podcast, and you can get a free copy of the book there. And then I do 7 bonuses on how to implement this system into your business. And, I talk about how to use it for LinkedIn, how to use it for other social media channels, and just so that you can take it from being this idea to pragmatically implementing it into your business. Because
Awesome.
I know, I mean, I do small business consulting all the time, and like business is hard and it's not getting any easier this year. Right.
No.
Like there's no,
Last I heard, I didn't get the memo that it's getting easier anytime.
you know what, all the news is negative right now. And so it's the one time I think that business owners need to focus on sales and marketing more than ever, because
Yeah.
as things tighten up, you got to be tight. And the businesses that are going to survive the next couple of years are going to be the ones that tell the best stories. And that's just the way it is.
See, that's how you end the show right there. That was good stuff. It's about telling the best story when things get tight. Anthony, thank you so much for being on board the Profit Express today. I appreciate your time.
Hey, I appreciate you, Tim. Thank you.
You got it. And again, today's guest, Anthony Butler, author of Primal Storytelling. Yes, we're marketing for humans. Please don't forget. And of course, be on the lookout every Wednesday as we drop shows just like the one I had with today's guest, Anthony Butler. And you're checking them out on iTunes and Spotify and YouTube, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Hit the subscribe button, the likes, the dings, all that kind of stuff. You know the deal. But more importantly, each and every day, do what you need to do. Dig deep. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. Do whatever's necessary to continue to win the battle for business. Until next time.